Good morning! We are here for me to show you this beautiful plant. It's called the CHAYA plant, also known as the Mexican tree spinach. And as it was a gift from the Mayans, they say, so I've read. And these leaves are pretty easy to pick off. All you do is just use these leaves. They're hardy, they're rich in potassium, calcium, iron, rich in antioxidants. They're so healthy for you, and they're a wonderful thing to incorporate into any of your dishes because they're very sturdy and they can withstand long cooking, almost like grape leaves. So we're gonna make a quick stir fry out of this, the papaya and CHAYA stir fry with chicken. So come with me and we'll get started. And let's start our dish. So right now I'm going to walk you through what we have and what we'll be using so get you more familiar with ingredients. So down here we will be using papaya chopped into little matchsticks, the beautiful CHAYA leaves. Over on this side we have our concentrated bouillon base, roughly maybe a teaspoon, maybe 2 tablespoons of fish sauce, like 2 teaspoons of sugar, maybe a half a teaspoon of white pepper, roughly chopped garlic, about maybe 3 tablespoons, 1 chili pepper, and here I have 2 large chicken breasts that are cut up into thin slices. Okay, let's start with our chicken breast. We need to start marinating this. It will not take too long, maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Since the chicken breasts are cut very, very thin. So they're thin slices, roughly this size. So we'll take our spoon and we're gonna put just a little bit of everything that we're gonna put in our stir fry, because layer our flavors to make sure that everything is nicely flavored, because it's gonna be a quick cook. Nothing's gonna be braising or cooked for too long. And some black pepper, and a little bit of our garlic. So stir this around and put this aside to let this sit for a couple of minutes. Now we have our chicken marinating just sitting there. We will go to our CHAYA leaves. These are what we'll be working with. They're beautiful leaves. They taste similar to spinach but have a more heartier texture. Now all you would have to do, you pick them with the stem, is just yank them off. Simple as that. So we have a few here. I've already pre-prepared roughly, it looks like a lot. It'll shrink down as you cook. But what we're gonna do, we have to pre-prepare our chicken and our CHAYA leaves. There's a reason for this. CHAYA has a bit of cyanide if they're eaten raw. So you cook it for between 5 to 20 minutes, depending on what website you read, to make sure that these are safe and edible. They are safe to eat raw, but they suggest only 5 leaves a day. So you make your call on that. But so we're here at the stove. I've already had my water boiling, and what we're doing here is called silkening the chicken. Since we're using chicken breast, the meat is very lean, and so you would have to treat it a little bit to make sure that when you do a stir fry, the meat still stays tender and not all dried out when you start cooking it. So this is an optional process, but it does make a difference in the texture of the meat. If you're using dark meat though, you could skip this process because dark meat has enough fat in it to make sure that it stays good and moist. So it only takes a few seconds just to make sure that the outside of the chicken turns white. All right, this is what we're looking for. It's not fully cooked through, but it's just white on the outside, which does seal in the outer layer of it to make sure that the moisture of the chicken stays in the chicken and not out on in the pan once it's cooked. So we're gonna strain this out, and this water is now flavored. And this is what we're gonna use to parboil our chaya. All right, so we got out all the chicken now, and the water is good and flavored to put in our chaya leaves. And make sure that this gets boiled for a good 5 to 10 minutes. It might look like a lot in the pot, but it does shrink down like spinach. And these are very hardy leaves, so they can withstand long cooking. Almost like the texture of grape leaves if you've ever worked with them. So we're gonna leave this here with the lid on. And we're gonna go back to the table and prep our papaya. So let's start cutting these into little matchsticks. You have to make sure that if you have a quarter of a papaya here, you cut off the ends to make sure that you have a flat surface to work with. Otherwise, it'll be wobbly everywhere. Then cut these into just horizontal slices. Once you get that done, you lay these all flat and you cut them into little matchsticks. Just be slow with this, because if you're not a professional chef, you know, things can slide around and be very difficult. But that's what you're looking for, just to have a quick cook, because these do take a little bit to get soft. All right, it looks like our chaya is done. It's been 5 minutes and this thing has been bubbling away, so we know it's safe enough to eat. So let's strain this out. And we are gonna go back to our cutting board and chop this into stir-fry pieces. Okay, we have the strained chaya, and make sure it's cool enough for you to handle, because we're gonna have to squeeze all that water out. So here we have the strained chaya. We're just gonna take this out and give it a good wring. Make sure it's dry enough, because this is going to be a dry stir fry. It's going to be very little sauce to it. So you can see this is a very tough leaf and can handle a little bit of abuse. Alright, so that's done. So let's chop it up into similar pieces like the papaya. Just a rough chop, doesn't need to be too much. And I would say one more just right across the middle for good measure. So here we have perfect little pieces. So this needs to be a dry sauce, because since these leaves are very thin and small, a lot of the sauce tends to stick to it. And if there's too much sauce, it'll just be very salty on just one bite. So if you make it a dry stir fry, then it'll just be perfect, and the perfect bite, and the perfect meal. Let's head off to the stove and start frying this up. All right, let's get our wok hot. So on my stove, I have that middle burner, which does give a large amount of heat. So this is gonna be quick cooking. And you need that high heat to make sure that everything cooks at a very high temperature and very, very fast, because everything is already kind of pre-cooked. So the first thing you would need to know is hot wok, cold oil. I learned that through many, many, many trials and errors. If you have a hot wok and cold oil, nothing will stick to your pan. So let's get this smoking hot. So I'll take a couple of minutes. It's really quick. All right, our wok is starting to smoke. I have my mise en place ready to make sure everything can be tossed in really fast. And so let's get started. Cold oil. Ring around. Toss in our garlic and chili. I put it in the chili hole because all I do is I just want the flavor. I don't want any of the heat, so we're able to take it out. Let that sizzle for a few minutes. We're gonna add in our chicken. So we'll toss this. We don't need to add any seasoning to our chicken at this point because it's already been pre-seasoned. We just want a little of that water to evaporate, and then we will toss in our papaya first, which is the toughest vegetable right now. So most of the water has evaporated now. We're gonna put in our papaya that we've pre-chopped. Leave the CHAYA for last, since that's already been pre-cooked. Alright, the papaya has wilted a bit, and at this point we're gonna add in our seasoning, so that's when they're gonna absorb everything. So here we have our fish sauce. Make sure you do it in a circle. Our seasoning sauce, which is the bouillon base. A little bit of sugar for balance. And our black pepper, white pepper, sorry. And toss it around. As you can see, it's a very dry stir fry, but a lot of water does come out of the papaya. Alright, at this point we've already seasoned our papaya. So we gotta wait for a little bit, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, for the papaya to get more wilted and release more of its own juices to kind of create like a very, very little sauce for this. Alright, as you can see here, the papaya has become a bit translucent. That means it's released a lot of its water, and it's time to add in the CHAYA now, so it's nice and soft. The very last moment, add in our CHAYA and give this a good toss. Incorporate the CHAYA in there. And we are done. We are done. We're turning off the fire and we're ready to plate. Oh, beautiful. Here it is, the completed dish. A good bowl of papaya stir fry with CHAYA, and it goes perfectly with a good bowl of steaming hot jasmine rice. Let's take a little bite. The chicken is cooked perfectly. It's not dried out whatsoever, so silkening does make a big difference. The flavor of this is more on the savory side because the good amount of sugar in this does balance out this dish. But it's absolutely delicious and you must try it. I hope you liked this video, and if you could, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to see more videos, just click the little bell icon to get notified. Thanks! Until next time.